Hello, everyone. I'm Rania Khalek for Breakthrough News, and this is Dispatches. And I'm super excited to welcome Katie Halper, the host of the Katie Halper Show and Useful Idiots. We've got lots to talk about. Katie, how are you?
I'm good. You?
I'm good, thanks. It's good to be on. So what we're going to be talking about today is the CIA's new recruitment video. It's quite an interesting one. Let's watch it
Yeah.
and then we can discuss.
Hold the space for it.
Yeah. It's I'm impressed. Like this video
Really well done.
is pretty incredible. Let me make sure I'm sharing the right one.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is it. All right. Let me make it big. Here we go. Can you hear it?
When I was
No.
17,
Yes.
I quoted Zora Neale Hurston's How It Feels to Be Colored Me in my college application essay. The line that spoke to me stated simply, I am not tragically colored. There is no sorrow dammed up in my soul nor lurking behind my eyes. I do not mind at all. At 17, I had no idea what life would bring, but Sora's sentiment articulated so beautifully how I felt as a daughter of immigrants then and now. Nothing about me was or is tragic.
She's so happy.
I am perfectly made. I can wax eloquent on complex legal issues in English while also belting Guayaquil de mis amores in Spanish.
Ooh.
I can change a diaper with one hand and console a crying toddler with the other. I'm a woman of color. I am a mom. I am a cisgender millennial who's been diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder.
Those buzzwords.
I am intersectional, but my existence is not a box-checking exercise. I am a walking declaration, a woman whose inflection does not rise at the end of her sentences, suggesting that a question has been asked. I did not sneak into CIA. My employment was not and is not
Gina
the
Haspel.
result of a fluke.
Oh yeah, Gina.
Oversaw
Woo!
waterboarding. Yeah.
I earned my way in, and I earned my way up the ranks of this organization. I am educated, qualified, and competent, and sometimes I struggle. I struggle feeling like I could do more, be more to my two sons.
You probably could by not being in the
struggle leaving
CIA.
the office when I feel there's so much more to do. I used to struggle with imposter syndrome, but
Well.
at 36, I refuse to internalize misguided patriarchal ideas of what a woman can or should be.
Misguided? Why
I am
misguided? Why are you
tired of feeling
cutting them
like I'm
slack?
supposed to apologize for the space I occupy rather than intoxicate people with my effort, my brilliance.
Her brilliance.
I am
Aung
proud of
San.
me. Full
What's her
stop.
name? The
My
woman
parents
who
left everything
I don't
got
know.
overthrown
I
in
was looking
Myanmar.
for her.
exposed me to opportunities they never had. Because of them, I stand here today.
Nice heels. I like
first
Mhm.
generation
the
Latina
transparent
and officer
heels.
at CIA.
officer of
I
CIA.
am unapologetically me. I want you to be unapologetically you.
Unless you're
whoever
Yemen.
you are. Know your worth.
Yeah.
Command your
I was
space.
making fun of her expression there last
Mija,
night on my
you're worth
stream,
it.
which you can
Yeah.
find on YouTube, by the way. Because she really hits, she slams vocal fry, right? She talks about how her words don't go up at the end, her sentences don't go up at the end, but then her facial expression at the end is like basically the facial equivalent of vocal fry. She's like
Yeah.
very
Oh.
apologetic, not bold at all.
The CIA plays ads apparently. So just to be clear, just before we get into this, because
Yeah, sure.
okay, so this video has been getting a lot of attention. It's all over like the internet and Twitter and trending. It's part of this series that the CIA has put together since it rebranded a couple months ago called The Humans of CIA, which I guess is like a play on the humans of New York.
Oh,
Yeah. And it's basically there's like all these videos. Their whole idea is to basically reach out to these millennials, right? These like sort of using this woke millennial language to try and recruit younger people at this point, people in their 30s, to come work for the CIA. And it's like they have a lot of diversity. They have like people of color in their recruitment videos now. And this one is just the most intense and insane one I've seen. Like a few of the buzzwords she threw out there, intersectional. She said, command your space. And all I could think was like, well, when any country in the global south tries to command their space, the CIA bulldozes them. So this was a really upsetting video to see too, because they were trying to play up that she's a daughter of immigrants. And all I could think when she was like, my parents came here, I'm like, where did your parents come from? And was it a country destroyed by the CIA?
Ecuador, we figured out because she says Guayaquil. Mis amores, which
Ecuador. Ecuador has had to deal with a lot of American meddling. I said has all of Latin America, but it's just like I
Why are
don't know.
people
I want to get your reaction to it, but mine was actually like I felt really angry watching it. Like it made me mad because I'm just like, this is an organization. First of all, you have the most destructive intelligence organization in the world co-opting the language of identity and this like sort of wokeism that's become so dominant on the left and among liberals.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because we now see this kind of debate where some people are saying, look at this CIA advertisement. This shows that intersectionality and diversity are just bad things. I mean, they're not saying it that explicitly, but they kind of are. And then other people are being like, who we don't have anything in common with politically, are like, this is a good thing. And then where I stand is kind of like representation matters. It does. Diversity matters. And it's also when it's used as a tool to like to do PR for an agency that kills people around the world and disproportionately kills people of color.
Right.
Because the people we tend to mess up, kill, destabilize happen to be brown and black for the most part. That is a sordid thing. It's sordid. It needs to be called out. And it's in many ways more dangerous than the stodgy, straight old white men of the CIA because, like, we know that those guys are stodgy, straight old white men and, like, have done a lot of shit and have a lot of blood on their hands. And this is, of course, trying to rebrand the CIA as a woke institution. And what I feel a little conflicted about is I get it. Like, I get that I'm not going to celebrate this diversity, but it's a bit like with the military. Like, I don't believe in the trans ban, and I'm not going to be on the streets like organizing for trans people to like enter the army. Right. But I get that it's like equality and representation matters. It's just not. There are two issues. One is my priority is not in the military or the CIA where they do very bad things, and the other real issue is that it's being weaponized in a dishonest way.
And that's what, I mean, you coined this term as Biden was running for office and he won and started appointing people as woke washing.
Woke washing, yeah. It's such a good term. I got to write a book about it, yeah.
Because he appointed Lloyd Austin, the first Black person to serve as Secretary of Defense, also former board member of Raytheon.
Yeah.
And this was something that everybody celebrated. He appointed actually did Kamala Harris as the first woman vice president, woman of color.
And it was so funny because with Blinken, he was in a bind because he couldn't really celebrate any part of his identity. I mean, he's Jewish, whatever. But like, so what he had to do is, I guess, I don't know if this was coordinator or Samantha Powers did on her own, but she literally was like, don't let this get lost. He is a new father. like, okay, first of all, Goebbels was a new father too. So let's not get too excited about that. I'm not comparing him to Goebbels. I'm just saying like being a new father does not give you any moral authority. And second of all, it's not exciting or groundbreaking to be a man and working. She kind of, I don't have the tweet on hand, but you can find it later or whatever. But she was basically celebrating like having working parents. It's like, if he was a woman and a new mother and was working at this, like a full-time job, like that would be something that, is worth, mentioning when you're trying desperately to find something to celebrate about these ghouls. But like, he's a dude that doesn't even work and he's not gay. Like, cause then I thought maybe he was gay cause his wife's name is Evan, but no, so that doesn't work either.
Well, speaking of gay, I have this video as well that we don't have to watch the whole thing, but it's worth watching. Let me see. Hang on. This one. It's worth watching just a few seconds of it because you mentioned gay. Here it is. Let me make it big. This is another Humans of the CIA.
My favorite thing about CIA is that they encourage the out-of-the-box ideas that drive real progress. Growing up gay in a small southern town, I was lucky to have a wonderful and accepting family. I always struggled with the idea that I might not be able to discuss my personal life at work. Imagine my surprise when I was taking my oath at CIA and I noticed a rainbow on Director Brennan's helmet, which I later learned was designed by Angle, one of the many employee resource groups here at the agency. I remember being stunned. Since then, however, I've learned that far beyond the resource groups, inclusion is a core value.
Anyways, that's you get the picture there.
Again, it's like I'm not gonna hate on people if you like organize within, if you have like a I don't know what they do at the CIA, like a gay killing group caucus or something. Like I get that, but it's just sordid. And if you care about human rights, I mean, Like what was it? Human Rights Campaign had a thing with Raytheon where they gave it a great rating on how they treat the LGBTQ employees. But you know what? Like, you should have called yourself like LGBTQ Rights Campaign, because then you wouldn't be as embarrassing as you are when you're celebrating Raytheon. Your name is literally Human Rights Campaign. Like, show me where Raytheon has been good on human rights.
Well, here you mentioned like a gay. This is new too. It's history was made on Friday, this past Friday, with the first ever all gay U.S. Navy helicopter crew.
That is so good. I hope that when they drop, what does the Navy do? Do they drop bombs? I don't even know. Your DMs are open, by the way. Mine are always too.
Oh, wait, really? You can see them?
Yeah,
oh, whoops. I should. Okay, well, now everybody knows who I talk to.
Yeah.
It's not that surprising.
Yeah.
Ollie.
Vargas.
So, yeah, it's then this is actually, it made me laugh because here we go. I loved this response to that, which was Vijay Prashad. Shout out to Vijay. He was like, the U.S. Navy's, God, I really got to get rid of these. The U.S. Navy's all gay helicopter crew will destroy your village.
Yeah, I know. That's what I was thinking. It's like it's gonna be hella gay when they drop bombs. Like what's the, imagine you're like breathing your last breaths and you're like, I'm so glad that the people who bombed my village were
gay. Well, it's like how I feel about Pete Buttigieg, right? Like I'm super excited. The first trip, Secretary of Transportation, that's gay.
He's the first cabinet member to be approved by this acting senator or something. He wasn't even, because Trump had a gay, what's his name, Grendel or something?
I don't remember.
Yeah, he had a gay guy in his cabinet, but it just was like not approved of. Not like he pushed it. I mean, there was nothing illegal about it, but yeah, which is why they have to keep saying the first. Let's see. What did they keep saying? Ben Burgess makes fun of this. Buttigieg, first gay to be approved.
The first gay to be approved?
To be approved by, hold on.
Well,
he's the first openly gay person confirmed to U.S. cabinet. But the other guy, the Trump guy, was like under Donald Trump, Richard Grenell served as acting director of national intelligence and is gay, but he did not have to face Senate confirmation as an acting director. So big deal.
So I guess, like, for real quick, like, just to, all this stuff is really funny, but I think there's a danger to it. So I guess, like, since you coined the term woke washing, give me an idea of what you mean by that. So it seems self-explanatory.
Yeah, well, woke washing is, right, there's like the term whitewashing, obviously, which everyone knows, which is when you like sanitize something. But then there are interesting terms like pink washing, which Israel does a lot, right, which is where they point to their LGBTQ diversity, their inclusion, and it is a kind of distraction from the way that they violate human rights of straight and non-straight people who are Palestinian. And it's both a distraction and just a way to kind of frame Israel as this beacon of democracy and tolerance, which is I'm sure that's, first of all, it's not true in most areas. I mean, good luck being openly out, like, and living with a bunch of, like, right-wing, rabid Orthodox Jews. But
right.
Yeah, good luck with that. But I mean, also, it's true. Like, there are gay nightclubs, and I'm sure they probably have more gay nightclubs than in other neighboring countries, and it also does not make their crimes against humanity any less repugnant and objectionable and illegal and criminal. And then you have people who, some corporations will greenwash, right? So they'll like donate $1 to something, or they'll plant a tree somewhere, but they're actually being very harmful to the environment.
Right.
And so woke washing is my term for when identity and representation are used to distract from the policies. And it's especially pernicious when, for instance, in the case of, I always point to this example, Cedric Richmond, who was a congressman in Louisiana who oversaw an area with a lot of rates of cancer, a lot of pollution. And he was named by Biden. And when he was named, the Sunrise the Sunrise Group? What is it?
Yeah, the Sunrise Movement. The
Sunrise Movement. They condemned his being named because he's bad on climate. And then you had Jonathan Martin, a white reporter at the New York Times, pushing back on Sunrise Movement for deigning to object to this guy. And he actually said, like, oh, they're pushing from the get-go, like from the very beginning, they're pushing back on Biden's most influential Black staffer. And it's like, okay, here's the thing. This is like a really sort of example. It's one thing when, like, with Israel, it's one thing when they're just like bad on Palestinian human rights and they celebrate how good they are on LGBTQ stuff. I mean, it's a disgusting thing and they need to be criticized for it. But at least it's not like the exact thing that they're claiming to be good on, they're bad on. So with Richmond, literally, if you care about the lives of Black people, you would care about environmental racism. You would care about the fact that his constituents were condemned to living in unhealthy environments because of his action, because of his inaction, because of the fact that he got huge donations from corporations who had an interest in, not being regulated.
Right.
So it's like even worse than the general doing bad things but citing good things. In this case, it literally is like harming the exact community that you're excited that this person is claiming to represent. And yeah, he represents Black people who have made it and have decided to basically make their livings and their livelihoods and dedicate themselves to doing things that harm the lives of Black people. I mean, that's it. So good. Yeah. I'm glad that I'm glad I don't want that job limited to just white people. I guess that's one step forward.
So I agree with everything you're saying, and I'll just add to it. Like when I think of the term woke washing or woke imperialism or woke capitalism or whatever, it seems to me like there has been this kind of swell in demanding equality and justice for the last, I don't know, like 15 years, I would say, like a growth in sort of like progressive movements and a progressive left that maybe was on like waning in previous decades. And so this seems to me something that's obviously utilized more by Democrats and liberals, and it's really used to pacify the left. Yeah, it's really used as like this kind of superficial way for them to pretend to address issues without actually addressing them. Like, okay, instead of ending wars, we'll just appoint Black people to head the Pentagon instead of
and we'll say that we're not going to support Saudi Arabia, but we are just in slightly less of a we didn't stop supporting them, but that's another way too. It's kind of like little pieces of like crumbs.
Yeah.
But one other thing I think that it does besides what you're saying, and I'm curious, like if we could look at the data of how much it pacifies whom. But it also is a shield, right? Because like the Jonathan Martin case is such a clear example. And usually it's not that obvious, but it's a shield because then you cannot criticize that individual. Mm-hmm. And by extension, you can't criticize that agency or institution. So you're creating a buffer.
It becomes sexist to criticize Hillary Clinton.
Exactly.
It becomes sexist to criticize
the Pentagon because, right. So you are creating a lot. You're trying to inoculate yourself and your administration. People are trying to inoculate themselves against good faith criticisms by putting, I mean, it's just like, it's like human shields. It's a Black shield. It's a woman shield, whatever it is. And it's just disgusting. And again, if you like what representation means is that you're representing you should be in representation representing the interests of not the most powerful, but everyday people. I mean, that's the whole point of representation. If not, it's just like diverse aristocracy.
I mean, there is something, and I think there's also something really attractive, whether it works or not. I don't know the statistics on this, but I do think that there's something very attractive to someone like me, for example. Like my entrance into leftism was like, it wasn't identity politics necessarily, but it was like the class issue is so important, but what's more dominant because of what gets more mainstream attention is the identity stuff. And so I'm a woman of Middle Eastern descent. My parents were immigrants. So that kind of rhetoric
sounds like you may want to join the CIA.
Well, it is. I'm not saying it makes me, I don't know if these recruitment videos work, but there is something attractive about hearing that, especially when you've grown up, maybe you don't understand the theoretical foundation or even the structural foundation of why you feel discriminated against.
Right.
But it's a good explanation without having to dig deeper. And so it actually, I feel like, and I can't prove it, but I feel like there is something to be said about this being dangerous in the sense that there are people who will see those explanations of, it's just about representation and identity, who will then get sucked into that and not see the deeper issues, right? And then it's more lucrative to not see the deeper issues. And the deeper issues to me have way more to do. I'm not saying identity is not important. It's absolutely important, but it's all wrapped up in class.
Right.
right? People are dehumanized. People of my background are dehumanized so that we can bomb them and steal their resources without blinking twice. You know, Black people are dehumanized, and there has to be racism so we can justify the exploitation and the imprisonment and all the money that's been made since America's founding on their slave labor, and destroying their societies. And, you know, on and on and on and on. And so it's absolutely wrapped up in capitalism. And that's what gets lost in the identity politics. So, like, I guess it's like, my question about it is, and I know it's not black and white, but does this represent a failure of identity politics as the most dominant principle? And it's not really the left's fault it's the most dominant principle. It's also because of what gets the most airtime.
Right. I mean, there's a lot, right? Because there's like, our country was founded allegedly without a class system, which we all know isn't true. But that's like one of its the shtick, right? One of its premises. I think what you're saying actually here is totally, I mean, very persuasive and true, which is that I think it can co-opt people's outrage and it can like de-radicalize people. But I also think that the left, our answer to that can't just be who cares about identity politics. I think that we shouldn't abandon, as much as I cringe at it sometimes, but I do think intersectionality is important, if only as like a gateway drug for people to get to understand class stuff, because
it was a gateway drug.
Yeah, that's the thing, that's right? True. Like if you don't come from a radical family, or if you're not an autodidact who looks into class or whatever, like you can live your entire life without really hearing anything about class, except for like the white working class, which is just some catch-all, which, you know, the way it's discussed by the media just makes them sound like a bunch of like backwards, you know, people with like one set of teeth among the whole family. But like, I do think that if you can't really yell at people and tell them it's not about race and it's about class, because that's just not meeting people where they're at. Like, racism expresses itself in very, sometimes not clear ways, sometimes it's not superficial ways, but some aspects of it are very black and white, very superficial, very clear. And so we need to be able to reach those people who see that, and we can't discount their experience.
Right.
And I think just from like an organizing perspective, we have to like, I mean, I personally think that the way to the most anti-racist things are universal programs like that. I don't think that there are a lot of targeted programs that will dismantle racism more than universal programs. And I also think it's good to have things that are universal because it's harder to stigmatize them. But sure, I believe in certain things like criminal justice reform. It's interesting because a lot of people who push back on universal programs as like colorblind and racist, if you ask them what's a targeted race-specific program that they do support, they don't necessarily know of one. But let's just say like that aside, even if we want to move people to support universal programs, like they have to see the connections. Like someone like William Barber is really good about that, right? Because like you already have people acutely aware of racism. So what you want to do is not tell them that doesn't matter or like they're being distracted.
And then you also have, on top of that, you also have the other side, like the centrists, the right-wingers in the Democratic Party, actually trying to frame universal programs as racist. Like, if you have universal college, it'll destroy historically black colleges. If you universalize this, then it's like black people are just going to be paying for like Chelsea Clinton's kids.
I know.
To go to college and for their health insurance. And it's
and they know that's not true. That's what's so gross. Like there are people who are good people who hear that. And it lands in some ways. You're like, oh yeah, that's true. Why should poorer people be paying for rich people for things that they don't need? But that's not how the world works. Like I get the appeal of that. And I think like if I were just walking down the street and if caught off guard and weren't like hip to these things and kind of like obsessed with universalism and programs and the weaponization of identity politics, it doesn't seem offensive. But remember, there's a reason that we had a term called like welfare queens and not social security queens, right? Because welfare is not universal. What Bill Clinton did to welfare is terrible, but it's very easy to stigmatize programs that aren't universal. And it doesn't matter like whether or not black people are over or underrepresented in them. It just becomes, you just have one anecdote. Now, sometimes people will point to the fact that people are like, oh, the government needs to take its hands out of my pocket, leave me my Medicare and it's like, you don't get it. So there's still universal programs will still be reviled, but there's not a population that's reviled. No one's
Right.
like, Black people need to stop living off of Medicare. That's not a thing because that's not how Medicare works. So, but all of that is to say that I think that we do need to, if you're at a meeting, you can't tell someone like, forget about race, just focus on class. You can say like, we're being played against each other. Like, like I think the labor movement needs to do this and sometimes does move this, where it's like our interests are being pitted against each other.
What labor movement?
Yeah, I
is the
know.
question.
Yeah.
Because it's been so destroyed. But I also think that there is, like, again, I go back and forth on this. I don't think there's any one answer. Like, I don't agree. Yeah, like I don't agree. It's like we should just pretend identity isn't an issue. At the same time, the more collective side of me understands identity politics to also be something that can lead to this like really individualistic way of seeing the world, which ends up becoming very right-wing. And I mean, there is right-wing identity politics too. Like you just mentioned welfare queens. That was like white identity politics. That was playing on white identity politics.
Right.
That's what the far right does. It's all white identity politics. And then it's just, I guess, a bit odd to see like the world's most destructive intelligence organization and try to use this language when they've obviously like been responsible for so many coups that have destabilized and destroyed countries. They fund and arm fascists around the world. And I just very quickly wanted to note, like, this is becoming a very common thing among the sort of pro-war hawkish neocon types. Like you have Max Boot, who's never, Washington Post columnist. There's never been a war he hasn't supported. Like, I think he even he talks about supporting wars 100 years ago. He's like happy they happened. But this guy supports every war, every intervention. And he's written several, like he wrote an op-ed being like, now I finally understand what white privilege means and I'm sorry. I'm like, you still support every war. That means nothing to me. And then you've got this. I just want to show you this clip, which is from a few months ago. And I'm sure you'll remember it, but it's worth seeing it in the context of the CIA recruitment video we watched. So this is John Brennan, former head of the CIA. You may remember him as having lied to Congress about civilians being killed by drone strikes. He was like the architect of Obama's drone warfare policies that killed people, put people on targeted killing lists, including Americans, without any sort of trial, and just like assassinated them from the air, unmanned. And so here's what he had to say. This was, I think, after the January 6th riots. Hang on. Let me do that again.
Is this the thing where he says like,
yeah, but I think I might have forgot to share the audio. Sorry, guys. I'm a little new at using this. Bear with me. Let me do that again. Yeah, you probably remember this. Here we go. I just this one. Let's watch the.
Well, I must say, to Claire's point, I'm increasingly embarrassed to be a white male these days, and what I see of my other white males saying. But it just shows that with very few exceptions, like Mitt Romney, Liz Cheney, Adam.
Anyway, that's all I needed. That's all you needed to see.
First of all, Liz Cheney is not a white man. I mean, she might as well be.
Well, I think he was defending her. I think he was defending her. Like, she's
right. But I'm saying like he's like with very little exceptions, right? He's talking about Republicans, but it makes it sound like he's saying with very little exceptions, straight white men are bad. But no, I mean, you should be embarrassed. You should be embarrassed that you are part of like the intelligence community. That's what you should be embarrassed by.
What does that even mean? Like, the intelligence community is like a group of people that identify. Like, it's a race? Yeah. Is it a race? Like the Black community or the Jewish community?
Oh, I see.
The intelligence community.
It's
like,
just basically because I can never keep track of which thing they're in. CIA.
But during Trump, they tried to make it seem like they were part of some oppressed community. They were like, the intelligence community.
People of intelligence, the community of intelligence. Yeah. Well, what was he? I mean, he was terrible. He wouldn't let this report. I mean, he fought with like Dianne Feinstein. He's not like even a, and she's hardly a radical, but they made that movie, The Report, that was all about that. He wouldn't like really, he oversaw torture. Like
well, there's also, he oversaw torture. And then of course the CIA director that Trump appointed was Gina Haspel. And she actually oversaw torture.
Ceiling. Right.
She like wrote reports about waterboarding.
Right. But water is fluid and very feminine. So shout out to her.
Gender fluid water.
Yeah.
I mean, I just think this stuff is like, it's kind of like a parody. Like, I can't imagine someone watched this recruitment video and was like, straight up, like, yeah, damn right, my sister. Like, command your space.
Mija, yeah.
Yeah, Mija, right. I'm gonna command my space and I'm gonna join the CIA. Like, I can't imagine someone watched that and that was the thought they had.
Right.
But I think it's more speaks to like a growing pattern that we're going to continue to have to deal with. And we dealt with it in 2016 when Hillary Clinton ran against Bernie Sanders and everyone who criticized her was sexist. We dealt with it when Obama was president and criticizing his war crimes, criticizing his Libya intervention that literally, brought back slavery to one of the formerly most stable countries in North Africa. Criticizing that made you racist because Obama was a black man.
Right.
And
that's an example of being totally distracted. I was writing a lot about Obama and the racism he was facing. And he was facing that, right? But he also droned. That's the thing, right? He was facing that, and he also bailed out the banks and harmed with the housing crisis, which very disproportionately harmed black people. So we can talk about those things at the same time.
He also deported more immigrants than any president in history, ever, possibly combined.
Yeah.
2.3 million lives just completely destroyed and upended to, as the deporter in chief. And then, you had Hillary Clinton running, and she somehow criticizing Hillary Clinton became racist. And that's when identity was really weaponized because she would deploy her black and brown surrogates to shut people like us up and call us racist for being she helped destroy Iraq. Oh, she helped destroy Honduras.
Right. Well, it's easy to not be a hawk when you're a straight white man.
Yeah.
That's another argument.
That's why all the straight white men aren't hawks. Is that what we're saying?
That's why there are no radical women. Like Medea Benjamin is not actually a woman.
Well, everybody would strip us of our identities. That's the other thing is I would get called a white bro.
Yeah, right.
Because I was Hillary Clinton
we're holding water for.
Right. It was, it's just, and there's one last thing I want to show that I think is really important. And then I want to bring something else up, which is you and I did a live stream a few days ago for DM, which is this European, social democrat or democratic socialist organization.
Yeah.
We talked
about Yanis Varoufakis is part of,
Yeah, I like the way you say that with the right accent. We did that together with Aaron Mate, and Aaron brought this up, and I would be remiss not to, I have to share it because it's so insane. Hang on, let me see. So this is an academic paper because a lot of this verbiage comes from academia. Yeah. Okay, so it's in the International Feminist Journal of Politics, which I actually don't even know what that is.
Well, that's because you're.
I guess I'm a misogynist. I don't believe women should write. And this person wrote. This is the title: "Drone Disorientations: How Unmanned Weapons Queer the Experience of Killing in War." And I'm not gonna read the whole abstract, but just to cut a sentence or two. Killing with drones produces queer moments of disorientation, drawing on queer I don't even know how to say this. Phenomenology.
Thank
you.
Yeah.
I'm not an academic, as you can tell. I show how militarized masculinities function as spatio-temporal landmarks that give killing and war its orientation and make it morally intelligible. These bearings no longer make sense for drone warfare, which radically deviates from two of its main axes, the home combat and distance intimacy binaries. That is a whole load of bullshit that makes no sense.
I know. I mean, and the scariest thing is I feel like she's actually she's trying to feminist wash. I don't know what the term is, but fem wash. I don't know. The use.
Well, she's talking about queerness, so I guess she's trying to queer wash.
Queer wash, right? Pink wash. So pink wash. I mean, and a different, if queering the experience. It's just I want to do this on my show every week. I'm just going to come up with something that I'm going to wokeify or blank wash. Just give me something like the death penalty. Okay, let's see if I can do it off the hook. What is it? Sorry, I'm tired. Off the cuff. The death penalty is a way it challenges
gender binary.
It challenges racism and racial structures by forcing white people to take care of end-of-life care for Black people.
Right.
And in that way, it reverses the centuries-long enslavement and subjugation of Black people. Yeah. It's a reversal of the and it is also, as you said, as you so rightly pointed out, Rania, it questions the gendered breadwinner model and labor relations that exist. And it is actually reparations.
Oh God, I think if there's anybody watching who like works for the CIA, we just gave them an idea. And I actually feel bad for offering that idea. But, I'll give you an example of the way that this stuff got weaponized, at least against me in the past as well, not just with the Hillary Bernie stuff. But I recall, like 6 years ago, maybe I used to write for the Electronic Intifada, which I'm very proud of. Shout out to the Electronic Intifada. Great publication. Ali Abunimah's founder. Yeah, it's an excellent publication, probably one of the best, if not the best, to be reading on what's happening in Palestine and Israel's many, many crimes. But anyways, I was working at the Electronic Intifada. My focus was very much on the issue of Israel-Palestine. And I had done a lot of work around the issue of the police exchanges that take place, right? U.S. police departments, almost every single one, big and small, has at some point since 9/11 sent its officers, or at least a group of them, to go train with the Israeli police.
Right.
And sometimes there's also the opposite exchange where Israeli police will come and train in the U.S. And actually there's exchanges like this with a lot of different countries, but it's very dominant with Israel because Israel has such a big lobbying apparatus in the U.S. and they really
anti-Semite
push for that. And the Israelis after 9/11 really tried to portray themselves as, oh, we can help you with counterterrorism. We're experts at it. We've been dealing with the big bad Muslims, since our founding. That was how they sold it. So anyway, so you have this police exchange apparatus that exists in the U.S. where the Israelis and the U.S. police departments will kind of like take lessons from each other and how to, I guess, like occupy and police, populations that they don't like.
Right.
In the case of Israel, Palestinians, in the case of the U.S., poor Black and brown people, but also poor white people as well, though it doesn't receive as much attention. But the point is I was doing a lot of work around this, and then suddenly I started getting like attacked and smeared by people I'd never heard of. A lot of them would be academics, being like, what you're saying is anti-Black, right? Like, what the hell are you anti-Black? What do you mean? And the argument was that by making this parallel between the Israeli police and the U.S. police, even though it's a factual parallel, right? It's based in fact.
Yeah.
And also by making this parallel, by using the word apartheid when you describe what Israel's doing, and by using the word Jim Crow to make a parallel, you're decentering the Black American experience, and therefore it's anti-Black. And it was a really stupid argument. Like, not very many people fell for it, but it did work to make me seem super controversial. And of course, it's obvious, like the people who were saying this were like basically doing Israel's bidding, right? Like Israel, like pro-Israel people were the ones who were saying this.
Right,
but they were presenting themselves as liberal, and they were using these like academic woke buzzwords. And that was my first experience with that. And so then to see how it's just gotten even more dramatic. And then I remember when Libya and Syria were like being, the military interventions, the arming and funding of these like fascist rebel groups, these like religious tyrannical groups affiliated with Al-Qaeda in both Libya and Syria by the US to collapse their states. When that was happening, that was another way that identity was super weaponized, because the US would basically be funding these sort of like pro-war lobbying organizations. And at the forefront would be these Libyan exiles or these Syrian exiles.
Right.
And we'd hear this argument of, oh, you have to listen to Syrians.
Yeah, listen to Syrians. Listen to,
they
have the ones that you like.
The ones that you like. But they have you have to listen to their agency. Of course, we didn't hear this argument with Iraq when they were like pushing Ahmed Shalabi. They didn't have that language at the time. Right. But that's another experience. And they do it with Latin America too, right? Like they'll be like, they'll have like these like Venezuelan troll accounts. You'll get like trolled being like, I'm Venezuelan, you're not. I remember when the embassy, collective 2 years ago exactly was like Code Pink and other anti-war activists were doing a sit-in inside the Venezuelan embassy because the U.S. was trying to take over the embassy and replace the people inside with Juan Guaido's people, to give the Juan Guaido self-declared government legitimacy. And so Code Pink, some other anti-war activists in DC had basically like staged the sit-in. They didn't leave for like a week or two. And all these like white, right-wing, racist, like hateful, rich Venezuelans outside were just like there constantly protesting and being really vile. And their argument was, and this got put in like this got pushed by other mainstream journalists, was that, oh, all these white anti-war protesters are trying to like support Maduro as a dictator. We're Venezuelan. You should listen to us. So anyways, my point is this is becoming more and more of a common tactic. And again, like we haven't done polling. I don't know how well it works, but it concerns me and it makes me deeply uncomfortable with the ramifications of it.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, we have to be on the lookout for that.
Look out for weaponized immigrants, as Yasha Levine calls them.
Weaponized immigrants. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. On that note, is there anything else you'd like to add about woke imperialism or woke washing, Katie?
No, just be on the lookout for it. Another thing that's kind of similar, I feel like, is this weird, like,
the Zoom thing?
What'd you say?
The Zoom thing? Is this where you're going to bring up the Zoom thing?
We don't have to go there, but yeah, there's a lot of, but like, there's a race to the bottomism that I'm seeing a lot of, and it's really upsetting. And it's like, it's, we see this in the language also of like microaggressions, which like representation and diversity, microaggressions, all of those should be like the floors, not the ceilings. Like if your politics ends there, then you're not really political. And, there's so much discourse these days about like women can't get away with that. It's like, well, whatever that thing is, like fight so that women can, not so that men are punished for it.
Well, that's why I feel kind of about the white privilege discourse too. Yes. I feel like I don't like the word privilege because I feel like the word privilege suggests that not being shot by police, that not being, foreclosed on, that not being followed in a store, that not being bombed. Right. That should be a right. Like having healthcare shouldn't be a privilege. It should be a right. So why are we calling all these other things privileges? And it also, I think a lot of this rhetoric also puts it on the individual. Like there's you are uniquely situated to, as a white person, just feel bad and talk about how bad you feel and everything will be better. When no, these are like structural issues, and all those microaggressions and whatever, like all that sort of individualist like discrimination we have to deal with is a consequence of these bigger structural issues that go back to the issue of class. And that's what's getting lost in all of this. And that's the point, right? Is to take economics and class inequality out of it so you can flatten everything out into identity. And that kind of brings you to wonder, like, are we going to have a time when the CIA starts like weaponizing the class issue? I'm not sure how they would.
Yeah, how would they? Yeah.
I don't know. But like, that's the one thing I really haven't, maybe I'm wrong to say that, but I really haven't seen that. I see Democrats weaponize it sometimes. Like we want to help working people, but that's not really weaponizing it. But I haven't seen that. But that's the thing, is all of this is to really distract from and erase the issue of class. So you don't ask about the root causes, which is capitalism, which is like imperialism, which is capitalism.
It's all distraction. Yeah.
It's all one big distraction. Anyways, on that note, Katie, thank you so much for my earphone keeps falling out of my ear. Sorry about that. But thank you so much for coming on
your phone. I was like, you have my phone?
Yeah, I have your phone. Thank you so much for coming on Dispatches. And everybody follow the Katie Halper Show.
On YouTube. Subscribe. It's the Katie Halper Show. Yeah. Rania's on it a bunch.
I am. Thank you so much for coming on. I hope to have you back on soon.
Thanks. I hope I made it past the test.